To understand all this, to make sense out of all this, we have to go back now, if you want, to these learning skills in terms of how do we actually come to these results? What do we do to understand this reality? It's all written down somewhere. So in the beginning is the word, and we read all the books, and this is how we obtain knowledge. And it's kind of ideas we have. And with these ideas, we gather them and we develop actually this knowledge that can help us to change, to use them for ourselves. There are these books on the market, how to, then you get good advice, how to be a good businessman and how to be successful in life and how to everything. Now the question is, how do you actually read? Because words are words, and that's a very simple thing. And of course we all know this. If we see a word, we immediately understand what it is, and then we hesitate, especially here we hesitate because we are not speaking our language, we are speaking a foreign language. And it's not only a foreign language in terms of English, but it is as well foreign language in terms of the subject we are talking about. Many terms we use in economics are terms we are not usually using in day-to-day life in the same way. Gain, profit, work, labor are specifically defined in economics. Even within this broad discipline of economics, you find different uses of, in accounting, in financing, and in economics, the understanding, the definition of what profit is about. We talked briefly about description, of simply taking a photo, a picture, and asking, can you look at it and telling your neighbor, and going on and going on. It is difficult, and there is always something going wrong. We don't get the full information, we have our own interpretation of it, or something like this. So even description is something that is not as simple as it seems to be. Part of this misconception, misunderstanding, if you want, is that we have our own opinion. That we see things differently because we like something, we dislike something. And this is different, my perception is different from yours. So we have to find out how do we arrive at a result of reading, of describing something that is common to us. You learned English now for more or less a long time. This is the first step. But there are so many other things involved in understanding a different language. Some terms you can easily define. A book. Is it a hardcover or a paperback? So you see already there, in a way, difficulties begin. A car. Is a van a car? A van is not a car. Is a four-wheel drive a car? Even within English, you would have difficulties from country to country. So we try, and this is what we do, we try to find a way of communication that allows us to to work with at least more or less a common understanding of something. Using analytical tools, we define them. What exactly is it when we talk about ABC? What is an equation? What is a number? We talked about numbers briefly. So it is about communication, but it is about specific communication. We have had this. Society is communication. And we have different societies. We have the societies in general, and we have the society of our discipline. So we look for something that allows us to understand things in the way that allows us to communicate. Many disputes in academic life are actually about the clarification of definitions. We all know what gain is. Kind of instantaneously we hear gain. Gain is good to me. I gain something. And then we come into trouble. Is it actually monetary gain? Or is it gain in terms of money that I can reinvest? Or is it gain in terms of living standards? Or is gain something completely different that is defined in completely subjective terms, utility function? So we have to clarify this. And this is an ongoing thing in academic work. So in the beginning is not the word, but you may know this thing. In the beginning is the butterfly. Do you have any idea why it is the butterfly? Do you have any idea why it is the butterfly? The decisive part of it is the last two sentences. There is first this confusion, this general impression of I don't know where I am. I don't know who am I. I don't know if I am real or if I'm dreaming. If it's me or if it's my dream or if it's a butterfly or I'm kind of swirling around myself. But then comes this stage. There must be a difference, a distinction. And this is the transformation of things. There must be something that makes a good, any good, to a commodity, and vice versa. This is how we work in academic, in this academic way, to try to find out what exactly are these moments of distinction. Where can I find criteria, actually, that allow me to clearly understand I'm not a butterfly. I think I am not a butterfly. So this is a difficult process. This is not something that we can easily do in terms of course, I know that I'm not. This is something when we go to terms like commodities or goods, we don't see immediately what we are talking about. We don't see immediately this is a good or this is a commodity. If somebody is working, producing something, we don't know if this is actually work or if it is labor. There is a small difference between these terms. We do not know if this is energy spent to produce commodities, or if it is something done because we like it, or because we have to do it for another reason. So distinction is a core matter of the entire discussion. And distinction is, of course, something that is linked to meaning. And meaning is something that is relevant in specific societies. Depending on, we talked about it in different contexts, it's about context. And there is actually exactly this point of the Mexican fisherman and this MBA guy. For the one, it's obvious to lead a life, a simple life, and having everything, a full life, as he says. And this guy from Harvard says, but this is not life. What is it? What are you doing? You could do much more. On the one hand, it's a kind of social pressure, because this is an expectation. But it is as well really the question, what can you do without your MBA? What can you do without your BA? What can you do without this and that kind of qualification? It's a kind of circle, you enter into a circle of distinctions, and with these distinctions you determine value, and you determine value in your specific social context. And in certain contexts it is important to have your communications tools as a mobile phone. In certain contexts, it is more important to have your communication tool in terms of books. In certain contexts, it is more important for you to have as communication tool the discussion with your peers, with your profs, with other people. And this is not simply your individual decision, but it is the determination of value in a very specific way, which as well determines the content of what you do, the kind of distinction. I was last Sunday. Actually, the story started on Saturday. Saturday evening, I was coming to my apartment. Somebody running behind me and being out of breath and can I talk to you? Can I talk to you? I said, thank you. Just take your time. What's the problem? I have to do it now. I was kind of nearly getting afraid. But would you mind to come tomorrow with me to my students? I said, yeah, fine. They like to see a foreigner. I think it's a little bit strange thing to be a piece of exhibition, but anyway. So yeah, fine, okay. She studies English somewhere, and I said, fine, we can do this. And I thought actually I would go to her English peers here at the university where she studies. And then it was actually turning out, and I said, well, looking for time, and when is it? Yeah, it's tomorrow. She didn't say this immediately. It's tomorrow, and at 8 o'clock. I'm up anywhere. I said, yeah, we can meet in front of the office building and come downstairs. So we went to some park nearby, and the other students had been actually preschool and first years. some I felt a little bit sorry for them. They had been so shy. Some had been very cute and very open. And it was not only being a piece of exhibition, but she made this as a present for some. They have had birthday. It was never ever birthday present before, so first time birthday present. So it was just say a couple of words, present yourself, and then they are happy. And then all people came, not all people, but the kids came to me, many of them, and asking, showing off their English. How are you? And what is your name? And that was kind of funny, even if I don't like to be a piece of exhibition and birthday present. At least they didn't cut me into pieces like a birthday cake. But this is distinction. And it has a different meaning of knowing foreigners, working in an international context. It has a different meaning even within a country like China. And you can think individually whatever you want about it. But in Shanghai, in Beijing, you are simply ignored. And you think, I'm foreigner here, you just look at me, I'm something special. And they just ignore it. And here you are something special, and everybody looks at your birthday present. So you can feel different, you can say as well, just stop it. I am a person, I'm not a foreigner, I'm just a human being. I don't want to be something special, and I want just to dive into the crowds. This makes distinction, and this is what we are dealing with, and this is as well the distinction we have on markets and how we produce. Distinction in terms of how we produce, what is productivity. Distinction in terms of quality, what do we produce. Distinction in terms of how do we actually detect and define the market mechanisms. In economics, and increasingly in academic work, we are not able anymore to think about this. We are looking into our textbooks instead of understanding complexity. And then we have our other textbooks. He's actually, I'm a little bit sorry for putting his name up there. Peter is a very qualified, very holistically thinking colleague, social policy. He has a broad approach. He understands things in context. But he wrote now a novel saying, I cannot deal with the textbook knowledge anymore. If I look at social policy, he is from Britain, in terms of social administration, in terms of laws, in terms of all these things, I cannot really look at what it means for the people who live this. I can take this definition of unemployment, of not having enough money, not having enough resources, struggling for them. But at the emotional side, it's extremely difficult to understand this. Because in the C to M to C apostrophe, I don't find it. For this, I need a broader description. I can have my figures that I showed you in the beginning with many, many zeros, and there was a 17 or something like this, but I don't know. And this is where I feel occasionally very bad about why you don't check the blackboard, why you are struggling with accessing material. And I would probably struggle with myself as well, occasionally, and I do it occasionally, say, why didn't you do it last week or a month ago? It would have been much more convenient, and now you have to do it last minute. So we have this divide, and we have an increasingly reduced understanding of what things are about. And this is not simply something that happens in academia, but this happens as well in daily life. I think I mentioned Charlie Chaplin, Modern Times, this film, where actually one scene is about Charlie working in an enterprise, standing there at the belt. Don't know if you ever saw Charlie Chaplin. He's a funny guy. So he's working there, and then somebody comes to this enterprise, to the boss, and says, I have a new invention. We can rationalize now the breaks so that people don't waste so much time with eating and having the lunch break. We have a machine, and you kind of connect the individual worker to the machine, and the machine feeds the person. And then you see the machine, how it is not working, but how it should work. And poor Charlie is sitting there on his chair, and the machine in front of him, and everything is stuffed into him, and he only has to chew. And then there is something wiping his mouth, and then actually the soup is coming into his face, so it doesn't work. But this is the idea behind Modern Times of a completely rationalized system, rationalized in terms of increased productivity. And you know yourself, having lunch with friends, going out, not having to think about time, if you come back in 5 minutes or if you come back in 50 minutes or in 2 hours, it doesn't matter. You enjoy yourself and the food, and you can do the same thing in 5 minutes, basically. I mentioned before this thinking in terms of cost-benefit, in terms of what do we get out of it. And we don't really get anything out of it if we stay for 2 hours for lunch. We may enjoy it, but in terms of cost-benefit analysis, it's pretty useless. We can have it in 10 minutes, and then we work the other time. This is cost-benefit. Or we relax, we sleep, recreation, and then we are even more productive when we come back from our break. So this is the rationale. And there's another film I came across, this Body Snatchers, which is kind of amazing how it is made, if you ever come across it, of really the entire life being captured, in this case, by beings from another planet. They exchange identity. And I mention it because it is something that is happening in different ways to us. That we are taking over certain roles, that we are taking over certain patterns, and we are functioning, not thinking about how we are functioning within this economic system. And this is getting even more exciting. If you look at Her, Her is a film that is concerned with what is called artificial intelligence. It's a new operating system. He, that's the main actor there, he puts onto the system, installs on his system, new operating system, and you know the operating system decides what the computer does and the entire thing. And the computer, while he is installing it, the computer asks, actually, do you want a female or a male? and he goes for the female, and now he is with her. So far it's kind of stupid and simple. He falls in love with her. The really funny thing is when the computer falls in love with him. So, and they establish this love relationship between a computer and a human being and a human being and a computer. Which is, we are living increasingly a life that is to some extent out of control and controlled by others, by technical systems. Go onto the internet. I occasionally have this experience that if I connect somewhere and I have this clock there or whatever it is, telling me how many data I sent without sending any email, without opening any website, without doing anything, but the computer sends something. And this something comes back. This something comes back when I go and buy books on the internet. You have been buying this, and most likely you are interested in this as well. If you look for a hotel, actually we have another hotel there. It's very good, it's very fine. You should go there. And it looks exactly, this is the price range you are looking, this is business or leisure time. This is going there and coming back to you. So this is the control. And of course you can click no. But it is at least on your desk and it is there as a kind of temptation. And sometimes it is there and you say, well, actually, yes, I'm looking for a hotel, but I wouldn't take this, but it's there. Just take it. Body snatching by an algorithm. Ex Machina is another film which is kind of amazing, that actually there you have the completely different story, that at the end, this person, she looks like a real person, is taking over and actually deleting, if you want, deleting human life, human existence. This is what happens. In short, somebody has to go to test. He's invited. It's a special price to go there. It's a detached area, and he has to say, without knowing, is this a human being or is it an artificially intelligent being? So this is the core of the story. As I said, it's completely detached, and he is not being able to communicate with anybody outside or whatsoever. And the idea is, after there is this one person who develops these machines and himself, and the idea is after a week, after this test he goes. After the test, actually both people are locked up in this building, they cannot leave, and she leaves and basically is the human being now. Far-fetched, irreal, something that doesn't happen. There's a long and complicated debate on it. You know all about machine translation. I didn't translate this. I don't know if it's, well, this is probably checked. If you go to Bangor, you will face this kind of language. They speak English, but they speak as well Welsh. And then you get something like this. Request ID, why ever twice. It's a kind of automated communication with some computer in Bangor. I have had a problem. I told the computer about the problem, and the computer told me what to do. That's your helpline. Even if there is somebody sitting at the other end of the helpline, this is an automated system. If you go to the stock market, if you go to the markets where they deal, where they trade money, where you think there are people speculating, people like you and anybody else, intelligent, interested in it, interested in making money out of this. You are only to some extent correct. They do the same thing as Amazon. There is a certain algorithm. Now it's a little bit simplified. They switch on this thing in the morning, and switching on this thing means the computer trades. The computer as such trades. The computer gets the information back, price going up, going down. Okay, put it into the calculation. I have to change the calculation for the next trade. I sell more, I buy more. And at the evening you're sitting there, okay, made another billion. And you know it, of course, you know it before. This algorithm is made by human beings, but it is kind of getting out of control. That much of the speculation is initialized kind of manually, if you want to use this term. It is made by people who know what they are doing and who know how to make profit out of it, but it runs then for 12 hours without any interference. This is what you have to understand when it comes to today's economics. This is a process that to a large extent is pretending to be real, pretending even to be human, and says welcome. Now this is the kind of funny side to it. Actually, Ex Machina looks much nicer, much more human and natural. I think they should really improve this person to walk in a proper way. Anyway, you won't laugh so much about Ex Machina, you would laugh more about him. The point I want to make now is what we do in economics as well. Adaptation of behavior. We have all these instruments that help us, that can help us, and that we can use. There's no doubt about it that they can do a good job. and they can do an excellent job. They can bring your coffee. Rubbish. They can detect, let's take a security issue. They can be there and they detect your face and they know if you robbed the car or not, if you robbed the Central Bank of China or if it's somebody else. And they can do it better than I can do. Was somebody long, I think black hair? Right, okay. Glasses, yeah, I think glasses as well, yeah. And go on. This is a very precise picture. It can go into the data files and be compared. Very precise. They can do calculations with all these algorithms. You wouldn't even think what it calculates, and they are already ready. There's another question now, and this is my question. And this is a real question as well, in a way not posed, but it's underlying politics like those of the IMF or World Bank. They ask us to behave like computers. We have to fit into their calculations instead of making their calculations useful for us. This is real economic politics, real life. Last year in Greece, you could link it, or you could see it when there was the so-called Asian tigers. This is a political pattern that simply follows certain formulas oriented on saying mechanically welcome without developing a long-term perspective, without developing an understanding of what actually happens in consequence. And there is always something where we have at least difficulties to understand.
Every time they test the plane,
hands up now.
The automation fixes the problem.
Yep, yes, voila, it's all good.
Even when they hear alarms, they don't worry.
We need to overspeed. You just want to hear the overspeed warning?
They're expecting the plane to correct the problem.
There it is. You can cancel the warning if you like.
They trusted their plane too much.
The crew allowed the speed to get so low because they were very confident in the good functioning of the aircraft.
Unfortunately, in this case, they allowed it to go all the way to the point that the airplane actually began to stall.
Stick forward.
Then they were in a stall recovery situation without a lot of altitude to work with.
Flaps up, flaps up!
With their plane in a catastrophic stall, the 7 men aboard Flight 888 were doomed.
Oh God! Oh God! Damn it!
Our march toward automation has nowhere come close to stopping. And it's appropriate. In previous generation airplanes, you first learn to fly the airplane and then you learn to manage the automation. In later generation airplanes, you learn the automation as an integral part. But we have to have the interface between the pilots and the automation improve and mature.
The official accident report highlights several contributing factors, including the aircraft washing procedures and the decision to perform flight checks at low altitude.
Yeah, we need to go slow with recovery.
The report also calls for clearer rules governing acceptance flights and more training for stall recovery.
This led the BEA to recommend training for the pilots to be able to recover from stall conditions.
Improved training for loss of control events is something that all pilots need. Loss of control is the leading cause of fatalities in all aspects of aviation. So it is an area that we need to focus on as an industry to keep our safety record improving.
You can see that even this thing is relevant for economics. By way of the one thing he said, and I think, this is the rationale behind part of what I'm doing. The one guy said, today you first learn the automated system and then you learn how to fly. This was basically what he said. Previously, you first learned to fly and then you learned to apply these instruments. This is a very important difference. First now, how does this entire system work? And then you can apply these instruments. It is not trusting, it is about not trusting anymore human sense, common sense, but it is about trusting the machines. And the machines are fine. These equations, these ways of dealing with the stock market, of looking for gain, they are all fine. But they leave out certain irrationalities. And you can see on this occasion and on the Mexican fishermen, well, you can see it what happens in this example. You could not see it in the example of the Mexican fishermen, but this is the same what happens there. You run into crisis, into an economic crisis. This is what happened 2007. This automated, if you want, automated system of speculation was perfect, not considering that at some stage you reach a point of no return and of oversaturation. There is too much money. As simple as that. Now, I know everybody would love to have too much money. This is what we as individuals cannot imagine. We always lack money. Would have liked a little bit more or much more. But there is too much money in the overall economic system that cannot be profitably invested. Meaning, again, you have to understand the terms we are looking for. Because it's not just money, but it is over-accumulation of capital. Capital needs to be reinvested. If you have money, plenty of money, fine, no problem. But if you cannot invest it anymore, if you have capital and you cannot invest it anymore, then we have a problem. The same with the fishermen. It's fine to produce a couple of fish more, but there is at some stage this point, again, of no return, that he has to produce more and more fish to stay in the business. And at the same time, there is this oversaturation of the market that nobody wants to buy fish because nobody needs more fish. I don't know how many fish you can eat per day. I don't know how many cars you can have in your garage. But at the end of the day, you can only drive one car. At the end of the day, you can only digest a certain amount of fish. At the end of the day, You can be stupid enough to put into your wardrobe many, many different clothes, but as well there is a limit. Even if it's the limit of your lifespan. So this is this accumulation of commodities, the push towards produce more because this is counting as wealth, and at the same time, this limitation because we still have to sell it. It has to be profitable. So we start with commodities. This is the idea. In this economic system, we have to produce commodities and they are produced to be sold. The idea behind it is to sell as much as possible, to produce in a most productive way. So we are increasing production, but at the same time, we are forgetting about the other part. How can we sell it? We come back to it later in economic terms. The point here is only to make clear whichever categories we ask for, we look at, we use, whichever terms we use, we have to have a clear understanding where do they stand in this entire context. Word or butterfly. We can throw out words in any arbitrary form. As long as we don't make this distinction of this is exactly describing, capturing this. Profit is not money. Money is not capital and capital is not money. This is what we do every day. We confuse things. Here we have to be very precise in the definitions we use. This is what we will continue next time. To look exactly for the terminology, the instrument we use. And this was the difficulty of your friend, what was it? Guangzhou, or this butterfly thing. First glance, it was confused. First glance, there was no difference between butterfly and him. So he had to develop an instrument to say, why am I this human being and why is this the butterfly? If we look at the reality, just looking at it, we don't see things. And actually, now you can say something about this photo exhibition.
No, but they can't see the photos. They can't.
No, that's a pity. I should have known more, but just come here. Say something. Can you use the microphone?
It was just yesterday. I took part in a photography competition, and the work I handling was a photography that I took when I was in Cambodia. Cambodia is a tourism country. So the tourism industry in Cambodia is very good. For the local parents, most of them don't allow their kids to go to school, get education. Instead, the parents ask their children to go with them and to sell products for those tourists. In that case, because of the little young children is young and adorable, so for the tourists, they are more likely to purchase the products. And in that case, the parents can have more money and gain more money in that circumstances. So the photo was basically about two young boys. One is the older brother, another is the younger brother. They're just sit there, hardworking in their works. The older brother, the elder brother, he is trying to make his work for selling as a product, and the younger brother, he is trying hard to doing his homework. So that can also reflect the situation in many countries, not just Cambodia. Is that sometimes for those poor people, there always somebody have to sacrifice they have to just like the elder brother, he has to sacrifice his education, his bright future. Instead, he has to work hard to do the job and earn money for his family and for his little brother. But also at meantime, luckily, his younger brother got the chance to get education, to study, and to get the bright future, to earn more money. And that somehow also made me and also Professor Peter think about the situation. Sometimes is that the society has to provide more for the whole society, provide more, or is that we have to create some of the policy to achieve that kind of to protect the person's equal rights. So sometimes it's different, and it is complicated, but this is also a question that we people have to think about. And in general, I want to use a quotation like, to give man a fish, it's not as better as to teach man how to fish.
Okay, I don't want to add much now, only because she did say exactly or make exactly the link to what we had been talking about at the beginning. You have private goods, we think in terms of private commodities today. This is the core of our thinking. But there is at the same time always the other dimension involved in terms of different forms of goods, of commodities, and different ways of being able to distribute things. So thanks very much and have a nice holiday.